Welcome to this week's episode of the Nerd Chatter Podcast, where two nerds sit down and chit-chat about nerd news that we find throughout the week. I'm joined by my good buddy Garrett. My friend, how are you?
Good. I'm glad to be back.
Feeling a little under the weather, I heard?
Yeah, just a little bit for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, mine's pretty much cleared up, but then I got that surgery coming up, so we're all over the place on this. So next week, Garrett might be handling the show here, and maybe the week after, and then we got our Halloween episode and all that good stuff. So busy month. It is spooky season, so a good month to be busy. And as always, I got the free and heavily discounted games that I find throughout the week and like to share with you guys. First and foremost, Rising Hell, free on Epic Game Store until October 13th. That's a pixel art roguelike platformer like Castlevania or Metroid. It looked pretty cool. And in that same genre, you have Slain, Back from Hell, also free on the Epic Game Store until October 13th. It's another pixel art platformer game. There's two of them. I mean, if you're into it, it's a good week for you. But if you're not into that stuff, just add it to your library. It's a free game. Another one here that I wanted to mention, an honorable mention here. Chivalry 2 is now available on Game Pass for both PC and Xbox. Did I tell you about Chivalry 2?
I can't remember.
I don't know. I didn't tell you because I don't think you have Game Pass, right?
My wife does.
I mean, I recommend Chivalry 2. It's the first person and third person, but it's a first person melee knight combat game. So maces, axes, swords and shields, great swords, that type of thing. And
is it like For Honor then?
It is. For Honor is a lot more arcadey. This one would be a lot more like Mordhau.
Okay.
There's another game like it, but it's so funny, dude. They're role play eccentric, so you get a lot of like animations and just funny dialogue and stuff like that, and just the stuff. It's a pure multiplayer game. You're swinging around clunky weapons and you're hacking, heads off, and you're dueling people and jousting even and that type of thing. So, I liked Chivalry. I liked Mordhau, and then Chivalry 2 came out, and I didn't have it, and then it came into Game Pass, and I've been playing. I've probably dumped 40 or 50 hours into it already. So it's incredibly enjoyable. It's fun. You can get a little frustrated, but it's one of those games where like an hour later you're getting the itch to go back and swinging around again. So highly recommended. Just give it a shot. And kind of go in there lighthearted, because even in the tutorial they kind of stress, it's a role play game. You're there to have fun and kind of joke around and hack away. So enjoy. Sometimes we do multiple stories for the show, and sometimes we just do roundups. I'm going to skip my standalone segment. I'll just go through the roundup and fire off a few interesting stories for the week. But I heard that you have an interesting little discussion to start, so I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thanks. So what we're starting out with today is more details are getting released with NVIDIA's 40 series launch, or the RTX 4000 series, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of the press that get samples have gotten their, press release samples, and the 4000 series cards, specifically the 4090s, are massive, like absolutely massive. The Founders Edition, which is probably going to be the smallest one you can get your hands on, at least for several months, is the size of an Xbox Series S. So I'm going to read a little bit that I wrote out here, and then we'll chat about it for a minute. Yeah. After announcing the RTX 4000 series and that its pricing wouldn't change, it has been revealed that all of the 4000 series cards are physically larger than previous generations and take up more power, with the 4090 requiring up to 1200 watts by itself. In retrospective, a 3090 card could be powered with a system total of 750 watt power supply. Reddit user HyperR159 posted a picture comparing the sizes of the current generation consoles, so the Series S and PS5, against the Founders Edition 4090, and like the 4090 is exactly as tall as an Xbox Series S.
It looked a little bit bigger, to be honest.
It probably is
a little bit bigger.
Then it's half of the width. Like when you put the card and its thinnest profile, it's like half of the width, and it's just a massive card. Then you have like the Asus variant that's almost as tall as a PS5.
Yeah, and I saw the picture of the PS5 one, and it was shocking. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was it was like some plastic, promotional GPU that they have like at Best Buy that they stick to the top of the display or something. But no, it was literally the card.
Yeah.
And I guess for people, if you want to like visualize it, it's like remove the side plates of a PS5. And it was like the same size as the innards of a PS5, like that rectangle that's actually in the center. The dimensions obviously different, but in terms of height, it was shocking. It was huge, massive.
Yeah. Anyways, so the card is massive, and if anyone is dumb enough to buy one of these things, you have to have an extremely large case, because any of the aftermarket ones that are released day one are 3 to 4 inches longer than the Founders Edition one, which barely fits in a mid-sized tower case with no hard drive cages or fan cages in the front. I saw a guy on a YouTube video try to put a 4090, the Asus model specifically, try to put it in, and there was no way he could get it to fit inside the case with nothing else in the case.
He's put out a little rotary saw and just start chopping part of the case.
I mean, he would have to. You'd have to take out an inch of the case.
Well, I mean, I told you when I got my 3070 Ti that it was a 3-fan, and I knew it'd be a little bit bigger, but it was gigantic.
Yeah.
And I had to remove one of my hard drive bays so that I could wiggle it in and actually get it to fit in, I mean, the case accommodated it after I kind of like looked at it and realized like, oh, they thought about this, but insane. And to assume that this one's actually bigger is just like, that's what I'm comparing it to. This gigantic GPU that I have in my PC compared to what I saw. It's like, this is a joke. You have to get special cases or something for this. Like, there's no way.
Well, they're going to have to get a full-size case, which full-size cases are extremely large. Like, you can't just get a super long case. Like, they don't have those. You have to get them larger in every single dimension. Who knows? They might make graphics or new cases that will be coming out this year just to accommodate the length of these cards.
Yeah. And 1,200 watts. Oh, I guess what did you say was 1,000 watts for?
The Asus ROG model is 1,000 watts, and the palette, standard edition palette, is 1,200 watt power requirement. That's not accounting for your CPU, just general
fans, your
exactly
your RGBs.
I mean, you're probably looking at a 1,500 watt plus like requirement for your total system at that point, and with that, you're having to look at your electrical system and your house to make sure it's going to be able to deal with that.
Running a refrigerator.
Yeah.
in your bedroom, you're running a refrigerator. Well, I mean, and as you mentioned, they had mentioned that, oh, well, you think the prices are going to keep dropping, but those days are over, So, I mean, we have NVIDIA that are starting to make some really bad moves. And I had mentioned to you off podcast that it was like they're seeing red, or they're like blood drunk, like they're so, I guess, hubris by this point that they could do no wrong in their own eyes. So they're just carelessly making decisions. I mean, given that's probably just a very immature and naive way of explaining it. But, you got Intel coming on the scene, right?
Well, yeah. So we have AMD bringing out really solid options. And here's the thing with AMD right now. They are really focusing on their drivers. So there's 6,000 XT or just 6,000 series right now. They are aging like fine wine, because every single driver update, the performance increases are huge for those. And they're becoming more compatible and more, not necessarily more compatible, but more friendly with Intel processors, which has always been like a kind of a finicky thing. So there's a huge increase with AMD right now. They have really great budget options across the board. Then you have Intel. They're just launching their first generation graphics cards with their Arc 700 series. like you have two competitors now, not just one who's been generally lagging behind, but now is really pushing forward. And you have Intel, which is scary that they're finally coming out with graphics cards because it's Intel. Like they do everything, and
they have the resources and they have the money as well. They have the clout. They have, and the prices were stupid. I think you were talking about, it's like the comparison is like 30 series in terms of Intel comparison, or I'm sorry, NVIDIA comparison for like $400. I mean, you're looking at, comparable right out the gate. I didn't believe that the 3060 was $400, but I guess the prices have dropped. But I mean, that's what you're looking at in terms of comparison. It's a limited market. They're not going to be selling too many of them, but look basic, look clean, and then you got some opportunities for AMD to maybe make some adjustments. For anybody that doesn't know much past, bigger number and newer device makes better graphics, like aside from your standard customer, for people who don't know, 1200 watts for a single GPU is a lot.
It's a lot.
Just to let you know that, just so that you're aware, typically, I mean, you throw a 3090 Ti into your system, 1000 watts will easily take care of everything on current
Every
standard.
single thing.
Everything. And then have some left, to spare.
Well, you'd be looking at a 20% overhead with a 3090 Ti and even an i9 processor. You'd be looking at maybe a 15% overhead, which is more than plenty.
Yeah.
I know
we had this going the opposite direction too.
I know.
We had this going down, I was shocked that the 3070 was consuming less power in comparison to my old 980 Ti's and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That we're going a different direction. These cards are getting crazier and they're getting bigger, but they're also consuming less energy, which is a good thing. And another comparison in regards to, AMD and Intel and stuff like that. If you've just always known Intel or you've always known AMD and you've never compared the two, they're not compatible. The CPU and the motherboard are completely inverted, right? So the CPU, the chip itself on AMD has the prongs on it. Am I correct?
Correct.
And then Intel, they have the prongs that make connection to the CPU on the board itself.
I think that AMD is in a prime spot to take over a vast majority of NVIDIA customers over the next probably 5 years if NVIDIA continues its customer neglect. We'll say that.
Yeah. Well, my implication was the fact that to switch to AMD, you need to redo your rig. You know what I mean? Like you have to build a new rig. You can't have...
You can do a graphics card switch from NVIDIA to AMD and vice versa. You just have to be extremely careful in the way that you install and uninstall your graphics drivers.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can do that. And I've done it twice personally, going from AMD to NVIDIA cards. Well, I guess I did it from NVIDIA to AMD because I got a really great deal on an AMD card several years ago now.
Yeah.
Then I went from an RX 580 AMD card to an RTX 2070 Super. And when I did that, I didn't reinstall the OS or anything. You just have to be extremely careful. And if you have your AMD graphics drivers still installed when you put in an NVIDIA card, it's not going to do anything crazy. You just won't be able to do squat other than Windows.
Yeah.
So
the integrated graphics essentially for the motherboard.
It becomes integrated graphics, which does nothing.
Just remove the GPU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's possible you can do it. I would probably, if I were to do it again, I'd probably just wipe Windows anyways and start fresh on that front. But you don't have to change your motherboard, meaning you don't have to change your processor and your RAM or anything like that. They played okay with Intel stuff, but the second you paired them with an AMD chip, they got a lot better. And that's been true is almost all runs up until the last probably 2 or 3 years, where you'll have an AMD graphics card run better with an AMD CPU than it will an Intel CPU. And that's been a driver thing. And now AMD's been really pushing the driver front to make those improvements so they're more... It's more
adaptable,
appealing
like
and
adaptable.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear, though, from somebody who has been kind of shunning AMD for the last half decade, that there is some type of progress in that regard. I mean, family members that have AMD rigs, and I don't hear them complaining, but it's like the same thing with like a Samsung phone. It's like they don't complain either, but the second you give them an iPhone, they're like, oh.
Yeah.
I see. Oh, okay, I get it. So that's good to hear, though.
Yeah, so AMD's making a lot of progress. So here's my question. With AMD bringing great budget options, Intel launching Arc, and EVGA pulling away from NVIDIA and their connection with them, and just graphics cards in general, is this the end of NVIDIA's, or at least the beginning of the end of NVIDIA's market dominance?
Yeah. I mean, with Intel coming into the fray, I mean, that's going to be just dividing the market to begin with. So whether or not it has a big impact or not, it's still going to be potential customers that are going to be taken away. So more competition for NVIDIA is never a good thing. However, I think the biggest one it is great for us. Companies competing against each other is absolutely great for the consumer. But when it comes to AMD, if they're already there, you know what I mean? And we can't really scoff at the advancements that they've made in terms of quality and their graphics cards and just overall rigs in the last decade.
Well, and AMD has the Ryzen CPUs that are really great for gaming. Those will literally fight toe to toe with the whatever Intel equivalent it is on any gaming benchmark. It's really cool to see that AMD's really putting their best foot forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the thing. My thing with AMD is they always said that, and then when you put it to practice, it was never really the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
much like these phones, how it's like statistically or specificity of this device on paper is absolutely better than this phone, but you put them into practice and it's a joke. You know what I mean? And that was kind of how I had AMD in my mindset, is that they always oversold their capabilities. But I've heard a lot less griping, to be honest, with these Ryzens, and the what's the GPU series?
So right now they're on the RX 6000 series. So it's 6800 and 6500, and
I hear they bang. You know what I mean? So it's like, yay. And we talked about EVGA on a previous show, right? And their flippancy for just being like, man, whatever, we're done, and just ditching. It almost seems like they have something up their sleeve. So
in a previous episode, we talked about EVGA dipping out of the NVIDIA and graphics card. I think that probably with the next generation of Intel Arc, we're going to see NVIDIA be like, oh, hey, look, we're helping out Intel, and here's our EVGA Intel Arc GPUs that are so much better. I think that's going to be their because I know the Arc GPUs, they're like the limited release and everything. It would not surprise me if they meaning Intel, team up with EVGA as their way to mass produce them.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Some slight modifications to the process, I'm assuming. Nothing like building from the ground up as a chip processor, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Are there not? That'd be NVIDIA that's processing the chips, and then boards. I mean, EVGA has that established business already, and to assume that they're just going to close the doors and lock it up and just whatever is a little naive, It feels like they're going to swing back around and team up with one of these other companies, which, I'm not going to say EVGA is enough for me to swap over to an AMD rig or what have you, but it definitely lends some credibility to alternate approaches to your GPU satisfaction.
Yeah, and my money is, like I said, on the Intel Arc, with them pairing up with that. I think that's a no-brainer if Intel is really wanting to get into the market and make a chunk for themselves. I would feel like that is the route.
Well, interesting news on the techie front there.
Yeah.
Rocky ground. Be careful out there purchasing GPUs.
Don't buy a used card right now.
Absolutely not. I mean, for the foreseeable future, we will see. Yep. Whatever. Just be very careful out there, people. Watch your GPU purchases, please. Look for new, factory sealed, all that good stuff. So yeah, that one is interesting. And like I said, I'm going to just kind of close it out with a roundup. Try to keep the shows under an hour. If there's something big, then I'll do it in the future. But as of right now, we just kind of had a few little juicy ones. I guess I could have done an entire standalone segment of the first one I'm going to talk about here. CD Projekt Red stuns fans as they announce a slew of new games and DLC projected for the Cyberpunk and Witcher franchises. With the goal of completing the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions of The Witcher 3 this year, they also have the Phantom Liberty DLC for Cyberpunk 2077 still slated for a 2023 release. Also in the Cyberpunk universe, they announced Project Orion, a complete sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. Along with those, they announced Project Polaris, the one of many internal names being used. This one for Witcher 4. It's a new trilogy installment of the Witcher saga. They also announced Project Sirius, a new project being developed by outside developer, the Molasses Flood. I've never heard of that developer before personally, but and it's going to be supported by CD Projekt Red. I'm assuming, they're just outsourcing the dev work. Not much info aside from fluff of it being an exciting new adventure. Finally, they announced Canis Majoris, I don't know how to pronounce it, described as a story-driven, single-player, open-world RPG set within the Witcher universe. This game is also being developed by an outside studio. They even hinted at something called Project Hadar, a game that is in early conceptual stages as a standalone new IP. Was kind of hoping that we'd be like, 2077 is going to have all this previously promised content added to it, the verticality that we boasted when developing the game, and the blocks of map that have nothing going on. We fixed all that, the AI and the cars in the distance just driving around in circles, and all those little issues that are still lingering. I'm sure a few of those are being chipped away. But really, when you hop back in the game, there's still issues. Just the entire concept of police and how they spawn is still just a joke, and there is no running from the cops in a vehicle. It's very surface level. Essentially, the game feels incomplete, and it was just shocking to see CD Projekt Red come out and be like, "Yeah, we got 5 or 6 new projects that we're working on." What do you think? Have you played Cyberpunk?
No, it's just literally from day one, it was such a train wreck that I avoided it.
Mm-hmm.
All of this sounds super greedy, though.
Yeah.
And almost like they're trying to distance themselves from the original release of Cyberpunk, so...
Yeah. Well, you got the CEO also left. He stepped down. And then I forget who it was, one of the lead designers or lead conceptual, I forget what it was, but somebody in a higher up position took his role. So there's some executive swapping going on right now. Just a complete blowout of side projects. My issue is, I forget when 2077 was announced. It was 2011 or 2012 or 2013 or something like that. Are they recreating the exact same mistakes tenfold, I guess fivefold by this point? Are they hyping these games up way too early?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, we talked about this in a previous episode where, company, I think when we were talking about Hogwarts Legacy, companies hyping up and saying, hey, here's this release date and everything, and then they have to push it back 10 times.
Push it back, push it back.
I mean, then there's other places that will announce it, like, hey, we're making this game here where we're at in development, probably within a year of it launching, but don't say nothing about a release date until 2 months out. And they're like, okay, here's the release date, and everything's laid out, ready to go, and you have a semi-decent product when you actually get it released. Of course, there's going to be glitches when a game comes out at this point in time. It's sad that we have to like admit to that, but that's
Yeah.
where we're at.
Yeah. And, the Project Hadar, I'm going to mention a conceptual idea, is so stupid. Like, that is just, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? It's like, instead of waiting until they had a trailer for Cyberpunk 2077, they instead, a year and a half earlier, were just like, hey, we're thinking about making a 2077. You know what I mean? And it just making it worse. It's not helping anybody. My issue with this is that it feels very, what's a good comparison? First we feast. The whole where they sit down and they interview people and they eat hot wings, and what's it called? Hot ones.
I think so.
It's like that started off as a novel idea, and then it expanded into recipe books, and then it expanded into merchandise, and then it expanded into their own sauces at the stores, and then it expanded into their own frozen meals, and then now they're going to have a TV show, a reality show. It's like, I'm getting that vibe from CD Projekt Red, where they were this humble, skilled, and precise developer, and have now chosen to go like the Mickey Mouse route, and rather than learn from their mistake, they're just going to double down. They're going to generate hype, and they're just going to pray that it works itself out. You know what I mean? We got projects from outside developers. I'm sure they've worked with outside developers in the past for probably like mobile games or what have you. But we're talking about what sounds like some type of open world RPG, or I don't know, BR or something like that, being developed by somebody that's not even connected to the Witcher franchise. When you talk about people enjoying these games, it's not just the characters that they like. It's the gameplay, it's the mechanics, it's the story, the way the story is being told, which is very indicative of the developers that are making it. There's a lot that goes into it, and by licensing your stuff out, I think I made a comparison in a previous show where it's like, oh, it was trying to find Mario Odyssey on sale. Is just not going to happen, but you'll find Mario versus Rabbids on sale every other week, because it's not part of that. It doesn't feel like a Mario game. It doesn't feel like a Nintendo game. It feels like they just licensed their stuff out to a third party dev or whatever. So it's just it feels cheap, and that does not feel like CD Projekt Red to me. So I'm thinking there's something wrong going on there. You know what I mean? That there's some type of executive decision making that is not indicative of past CD Projekt Red, and
That's
that might have
unfortunate.
been why the CEO left. Who knows? So a bit of a bummer on that one. I don't want to dwell on it too much. I did dump like 60 or 80 hours into Cyberpunk 2077, and to be honest, if it was finished, it would be a really good game. There were some issues with it, but all in all, if you find it cheap, like they were giving it away for free if you bought like a PlayStation controller, hey, if you can find that deal, hey, swoop it up. Next on here, this one hurts. Red Dead Redemption 2 superfan to lose 6,000 hours of playtime, having
That
chosen
hurts.
Stadia as his preferred platform to dedicate the progress to. With Google having announced their shutting down of their cloud-based gaming platform just a week ago, they did promise refunds to customers. Now, whether or not that carries over to games, I'm not sure, but there is absolutely no way you're going to refund 6,000 hours of playtime to an individual. No word from Rockstar that I could find. My issue with this is, as I mentioned it, this is intentional on Rockstar's part. They've always done this. You get Red Dead Redemption 2 released, I think, 6 to 8 months later than the console release, right, on PC.
Yeah.
There is no connection, even though they force you to use the Rockstar launcher on PC now. There is still no cross progress. It's for you to buy a new version of the game, which I did because I'm an idiot. I got it like dirt cheap. It was an opportunistic purchase, but you get it on Xbox, like I did, day one, play through the campaign, dealing with controller because I'm a PC player, and eventually it releases on PC, which I know Red M is going to come in. They're going to have their custom servers, so it's like I want to get on that. There's no way of getting that experience on console. I'm not going to play the game again for the reasons that I played it the first time, but I want to experience that, so I'm going to buy it again. They know that. They're not stupid, and that's why they do it. There is no way for him to easily transfer his progress from this dying console to his account, just his account in general. What do you think?
I mean, I think if Rockstar wanted to keep some face here, they would allow the transfer of that character or characters' progress in general to one of the other consoles.
Yeah.
Or computer. I feel like that would be a thing that Rockstar could do to this one person to save
just
face.
do it. Yeah, just do it. Help the guy out, you know, spend the few hours just transferring it over manually.
Yeah.
Do whatever, but I feel for the guy. I think the most hours I've dumped into a game is like 3,000 hours or something like that. It seems unfathomable looking back at it. I can only imagine, you know. However, I mean, I think I'm not sure if he was a streamer or what have you, but if you're dumping 6,000 hours into any game, you're probably not doing it just for your own personal enjoyment. It's probably because he's streaming or he makes content or what have you. I'm not 100% sure. But it might have been a selling point for his streams or videos that he was using a Stadia, because you had a number of people who were like hardcore Stadia fans who were using that as like a selling point, you know, for their videos and for their streams and stuff. I think cross progress is probably one of the most like cozy things I've experienced in gaming. You know, it feels so good to like play casually. You know, I'm playing, I don't know, Warframe on my console, and then I get up and I come to the office and I can sit down and pick up where I left off and continue, and know that I'm always making progress in one way or the other. For Rockstar, and you don't get that, and for Red Dead, me personally, it's like I think I'm a level 140 or something like that before I quit on console, and then I got it to like 80 on PC. I was doing PC for multiplayer and Red Dead and stuff like that, but I would have been so happy if I was able to just carry over that 140 and continue onward. I'd be like in the 200s or 300s now, you know, easily. And that's for somebody who's playing on a casual basis in comparison to 6,000 hours, you know what I mean? So I feel for the guy, rip, you know, it is what it is, but really we should be blaming Rockstar, not Google.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not, like I said, he's going to get any money back for the game purchases of that's an interesting one. I'm going to have to look into that. Next on here, artist David Bowen straps a robotic arm to a plant, terrifying humankind. Did you see this video?
Okay, I didn't know what this was, and I just Googled it, and like, it has a machete strapped to it, right?
It's a gigantic machete, yes.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, I'm not a botanist, I guess it would be. I don't know the inner workings of a plant. However, this individual is an artist who likes to combine like robotics and art together to, you know, to convey his art. This one, it's like he connected like little probes or whatever to certain parts of the leaves on a wall plant, and then attached a robotic arm. Much like you'd see in a factory that can grab and move things and pick them up and place them and stuff. But then he strapped a machete to it. And seeing this thing swipe around left and right like it has intent. Like it's like, oh, I can move this knife. And it's like jabbing and swiping. It's like, how are you going to shut it off? But yeah, I thought it was like insane. I'm going to have a link to the video in the description. But if you haven't seen it, watch it, because it's like, okay, now we're getting a little too crazy. You need to chill. What do you think?
There should be no AI with weapons of any sort. That's bad.
I mean, we're not even like, less than a year ago where somebody took one of those like Boston Dynamic dogs and strapped a gun to it. You know what I mean? And it's like, there needs to be explicit laws against that 100% forever.
Yeah, but with that Boston Dynamic dog, there's someone controlling the gun. It's not the thing
becoming sentient. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Definitely check it out. Link down there in the description. I got a few others on here, but I'm just going to do this last one here. It was interesting. Dwayne Johnson drops Instagram video alluding to the appearance of a character of greater strength and being from another planet in the upcoming Black Adam film. Still known as to why the primary desire for the Snyder-based fan base is looking for Superman to make the cameo rather than Shazam. The Snyder fans. I mentioned it last week. I had never seen speculation like this before. I really should have waited another week because it's just getting worse. It started. I'm going to say it started, but one of the key points in the beginning was they released a trailer for Black Adam. It included Joss Whedon-based Justice League footage. So naturally, the Snyder fans were just up in arms. Then the trailer gets taken down, and then that section of the film or the video is removed and then re-uploaded. The response to that in the Snyder fans was that The Rock had it removed. That The Rock went in and removed it. Some people even just flat out saying that he removed it. Then that became associated and kind of entangled with leaks from people who have supposedly screened the video, which I guess it is out there, saying that, Cavill makes his return and that he's in the blue and red suit, God willing. And the outrage on this now was that it's not the Justice League intro theme for Superman, and it's not the black suit Superman. That they got up in arms about that, and then they kind of carried on into just more speculation and just kind of just a snowball effect of assumptions. So now, even if Superman does make an appearance in this film, they still found a reason to be upset about it. What do you think?
Snyder fans will find a reason to be upset about anything, unless it's Snyder himself.
And well, that's something I've seen too. Is people being like, it really doesn't matter what they're given. If it's not Snyder feeding it to them, then they're just going to have an issue with it. And it's one of those things where they're making progress inch by inch intentionally by being like, we just want Superman back. And then they get Superman and then they're like, well, we don't want that theme. And it's like, all right, so they change the theme. It's like, well, we want him in the different suit. And it's like, okay, all right. and then eventually it's going to end up with, this isn't the right movie unless Snyder is running it. You know what I mean? You've done all this already. Why not just do this? And I can see how that argument would be justified, but I just thought it would be funny that people are expecting Superman to make a cameo in a Black Adam film for some reason. That is not the same. That's not the same arc. I can understand if you want to make like a tongue-in-cheek like reference, what have you, but really it should be Captain Marvel that is making that appearance. Shazam. Apologies. Yep. It should be him making that appearance, but I could see how that conflicts with the trailer that we've already seen for Shazam, where he's very self-deprecating about his abilities and his involvement and yada yada. So I think we just have a grave mismanagement of these characters and who belongs where and whatnot. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that one because it was absurd.
Yeah, Snyder fan. Okay, how many times have we talked about Snyder fans one-upping themselves in a complete, utter absurdness?
Yeah, it is. It's getting pretty crazy. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more people getting a little snappy and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, it's a little bit unreasonable at times. But I don't want to dwell on it. I just thought that was funny. But by this point, even if Superman makes an appearance, assume that people are going to be disappointed regardless. Even especially the people that were asking for it. So just want to throw that out there. So that's the last one I have highlighted in regards to what I wanted to talk about. A couple of other stories that I have on here. Disney television stations ABC, ESPN, FX, and Disney Channel are making their return to Dish and Sling TV after having a handshake agreement between the two. Black Panther trailer drops showing full shot of Black Panther. Still speculation as to who the female character is that's playing Black Panther. I think it's pretty obvious, though, if you look at Black Panther in the trailer, it's Shuri's makeup. It's the exact same markings. Like Shuri. It's identical markings on the forehead. It's Shuri. So no speculation needed. Moving on. No Man's Sky on Switch releases with new relaxed mode and complete overhaul of the inventory system. Thank God. Considered one of the game's weakest points with the introduction of a new player base from the Switch. Murray said they wanted to tidy up a bit and make tweaks that would be more welcoming to new and casual players. I downloaded that actually last night after reading that article so that I could play a little bit. I'm going to stream today. We're going to play some Chivalry. We're going to play some some No Man's Sky and all that stuff. So gonna check out some of these new modes. Have you ever played No Man's Sky?
Yeah, I actually got it on launch, and
Hmm.
for how bare bones it was at launch, I liked it.
Yeah, it's still fun.
Actually, I got it shortly after launch. Now that I remember right, because
Hmm.
you had the whole fiasco at launch, and then it like dropped in price. When it dropped in price, that's when I bought it.
An absolute just a victory tale right there. Like I'm not sure if it'll ever be beat. A comeback of a company was just so epic. The game is so much better than it was. So much better. If you haven't played it or you get an opportunity, download it and play it. Now they got a relaxed mode. You don't have to worry about oxygen, fuel, radiation, that type of thing. You can just go and have fun and build. They got base building. They got star bases and like space carriers. There's like different types of shooting mechanics and different beasts and robots to fight. It's a different game. So give it a shot. It coming to Switch sounds totally cool. Don't know how that's going to work. It's a heavy game. Next one, Twitter confirms it intends to close a deal with Elon Musk. Musk randomly agreed to original terms if the case would be dismissed. So he's pretty much going to be forced to pay $44 million for a shitposting website. GG's. Need for Speed Unbound announced with a December 2nd release date planned. And the cinematics of it featuring a pretty heavily anime-inspired art style. Russian government rejects plan to establish Russian-based national game engine that we previously mentioned on the show.
Okay, real quick. You have to imagine, like, they announced it, and then they like started getting into like, well, how much is this going to cost? And they're like looking at war budget, game budget. Oh,
Yeah,
$5 billion for game or $5 billion for war.
Yeah, I mean they're making bad decisions left and right, so I wouldn't put it past them. But as of right now, with the decisions that they're making, it's not time to try to be lucrative. It's time to try to sustain yourself as a country because they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot right now. However, I thought that was lulz.
Yeah,
I laughed. I was like, "Please get out of here! Just get out of here." So yeah, that was funny. Super Mario Brothers movie trailer drops. Internet irate over Chris Pratt sounding like Chris Pratt. Did you hear? Did you watch it?
I watched it without sound, and I can't remember why I watched it without sound. However, I don't have a problem with Chris Pratt. His voice. I can understand how other people might be upset about it, but it's a movie. Come on.
You get the Pikachu comparison to Detective Pikachu and it being Ryan Reynolds' voice. However, that was actually Ryan Reynolds. I was in the, so regardless, it looks super good. Like, it looks so good.
I was so impressed with just the visuals.
The visuals.
Oh my gosh, it was so pretty.
The epic camera angles that they're choosing. The fun. I like the penguins. Just like the do you yield? Like I like that whole like back and forth. You got Jack Black doing the voice of Bowser, and he's doing a really good job. I can see where they're talking about Chris Pratt because it's not like he's trying to sound like Mario, and he's not sounding like Chris Pratt. People need to relax on that one. He sounds like he's doing an East Coaster accent, and it's kind of bad, but we'll see. However, I mean, you could see the fine wrinkles on his pants. The internet irate that his butt wasn't jiggly enough, which I mean, I feel, but when it comes down to it, it looked gorgeous. So I'm totally down. It looks good to me. If they're gonna make movies like that, hey, it's not a corny live action movie like the '90s one, which it's a timeless classic. And it's not some cheap, cartoon movie. This looks like they put effort into it. More effort than you get from like a Sonic film or what have you. So be excited for that one. I'm down. Giga Gamer in Minecraft creates entire universe within the game. Black holes, solar system, galaxies, the whole deal. Not sure if you saw that one. I'll send it to you after the show. What is that? That?
I saw the black hole, and I was just like, holy crap, that looks exactly like what was the movie Interstellar? Yeah, it was just like, holy crap, they did a great job replicating that.
Well, that is the more technical way of how a black hole would actually look like.
Well, yeah.
And how light bends around it and stuff like that. And just the way that he pulled it off. Well, that was like their first representation of it, I think, in film. It being more accurate. And it was so creepy, like watching that scene in the film because the mass of it, But yeah, it looks super good. The planets. I know that there's outside programs in Minecraft where you can feed it instructions or like, you know, specifications, and it'll construct things for you. So I'm not sure if that's how he made like the orbs for planets and then went and just kind of covered them. But Earth looked like Earth, you know, Saturn looked like Saturn, and that, like you said, the black hole was super impressive. And I can't even, the scale has to be massive because of the amount of detail that he had on Earth alone. So I'm actually probably going to download Minecraft for the, I don't know, 868th time and hop in there and check it out. I did it for the Disneyland server that somebody made, and it was impressive. So I might have to go in there and check it out. I'll post that link to that video in the description as well if I can find it. God of War Ragnarok has gone gold over a month before schedule. Release date November 9th, still expected to be met. So get hyped for that one. And lastly, you know, real briefly, did you watch Hocus Pocus 2?
I did.
What'd you think?
I liked it. I thought it was kiddie. I mean, the last time I saw, or you know, the last time a Hocus Pocus movie released, I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's their target audience. But it was good. I liked it. I felt like it was an honorable sequel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Bette Midler rocking it too. Jessica Sarah Parker was definitely not in her vibe.
No.
I forget the other lady's name, but she did a pretty good job. The gag with the Roombas, that is the thing. We talked about that prior. A couple of the music scenes were kind of cringe. The stage scene, to me, it felt like and we're talking about this because we're actually choosing to do Werewolf by Night for our Halloween episode. We were originally going to film an entire little extra segment so that we can have it broadcast on the Halloween weekend. We're actually going to switch that over to Werewolf by Night because it was sick. And we're just going to briefly talk about Hocus Pocus right now. I like the scene where she's, you know, basically from the first film, you know, she's controlling everybody. It, to me, felt like the director had the capability of making that scene super dope. And I say that because the way the music was correlated with the dance movements and just the setting of the scene, I could have seen it being a little bit more dark with her actually physically like putting a spell on people, you know, like it's slow zoom in on her face while she's singing, and it's this kind of like serenading. And then kind of blend into what they already had, you know, and the way that she commands them to go do things, I think could have been done to be a little bit more like badass. But I really actually enjoyed that one little scene in the middle where she takes over, and then the joke is like, why are they going so slow? And they just fly off to go do their own thing. Like, I thought that was funny. There's a scene in there where Winifred comes down and scoops up the chick. I thought that was a super cool shot, like a super cool spooky shot for a kids movie. They're trying to like get into a car or something like that, and then it's foggy, and then whoosh, like just she swoops in, she picks her up, and she swoops out. And I was like, that's just, it doesn't feel like Hocus Pocus. It feels like there's a super good movie under here somewhere, you know? All in all, it's not going to live up to the original Hocus Pocus, but like you said, I think it was like a faithful sequel. I think it also has more hype than any other children's movie sequel like ever.
Yeah, probably.
People talking about this. I mean, I'm not talking about, you know, like Lion King and blah, blah. I'm talking about like a movie that was like Disney Channel level movie. It's like if they all of a sudden decided they're going to make another Halloween Town, you know, do you think it's going to have the same reception as Hocus Pocus did?
No.
Probably not. You know, it's because of how solid that movie was, how good Bette Midler was. And everybody else in the film was doing a pretty good job on that. So if you haven't seen it, you know, especially if you got kids, sit down and watch it. It's good. But I have a little blurb here. Texas mother Jamie Gooch goes viral on social media with an urgent message to parents about the dangers of allowing Hocus Pocus 2 into their households. I got a quote here. A worst case scenario is you unleash hell on your kids and in your home, Gooch said. The whole movie is based on witches harvesting children for blood sacrifices. Do not watch this film. Everybody thinks it's fake and innocent, but they could be casting any type of spell they want to. Anything could be coming through that TV screen into your home. Discuss. What do you feel about these demons, these television demons?
I think the lady's a little cuckoo.
It's a little bit absurd.
A little.
I did listen to that song though that they're singing when they send the people out to go find the mayor. Literally for no reason, at the end of the song, the last 3 words that are said is Satan, Satan, Satan. It's like I might have heard it wrong, but I'm pretty positive because it was said 3 times that she just flat out, just for no reason, says Satan, Satan, Satan. Bit weird, a bit odd, but it's a Halloween movie, so it's like I expect it. It doesn't affect me any. So I just like whatever. But yeah, we got some hardcore Christians down in the South that are a bit irate about the Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, they can chill.
I don't think it was that bad. Me personally, if you got young children, let them watch it. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it for the roundup. I got other stuff that was kind of circulating through today, but it's not really big enough to talk about. And then that's pretty much it. We'll just move on to the plug.
Real quick. I just got to mention, I've lived in the Pacific Northwest my whole life, and the Mariners are back in the playoffs. Go Mariners.
Yeah.
They won yesterday 4-0.
You got that. And then, God, you got the deserter from the Seahawks. My wife is irate.
I know. Everybody's irate about that.
Yeah, and you got the first game back. It was like Broncos versus Seattle. Oh, cringe. Anyways, what for you sports fans, there you go. The Mariners are back. But if you want to read or check out any more information on what we talked about, we got our social media, which is Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and Facebook at Nerd Chatter Show. I have the links down there in the description. You can find all the episodes of the Nerd Chatter podcast anywhere you can find podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and pretty much anywhere else. Just search Nerd Chatter Show, and we'll be there. If you're interested in becoming part of the community, we got a Discord, or you can head on over to our Patreon, where we have Patreon-specific content. For our supporters, I think what I'll do is I will upload the Halloween episode that we're going to record now for Werewolf by Night. We'll throw that on Patreon for anybody that's on our Patreon, and then I will just convert it to public on like Halloween Day or that Saturday just prior, and we'll do that. How do you feel about that?
Sounds great.
Yeah. And also, if you're interested in any of the links, we have them down there in the description below, like I mentioned a few times. And if you're listening to if you listen to the show on any of the podcast platforms, you can find whatever you need at nerdchatter.com for links to our social media and all that good stuff. Garrett, thank you for being back, my friend.
Yeah, like I said, I'm glad to be back. It's been a long couple of weeks for me.
So yeah, we're going to go ahead and call it here. Check out the Twitter, all that good stuff. And we'll catch you next week. All right. Later, guys.